Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? What we're going to be talking about today is farming. And there's 13 nations that agree to stop us from farming. Yeah. So there's this cult, if you will, that is getting ready to kick its war off on food to overdrive 13 nations. And many of them major cattle and fruit producing states led by the United States, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Spain, signing into a commitment to place farmers under new restrictions intended to reduce emissions of methane gas, cow farts. Yay. So it was announced in a May 17th press release that agriculture and environmental ministers and ambassadors from 13 countries, including the U.S., have signed a commitment that pledges to reduce methane emissions in agriculture. The U.S. was represented by John Kerry. Now, what does this mean, and why should you care? Well, I'll break it down for you. Well, in April of 2023, the Global Methane Hub, HUB, collaborated with the Ministries of Agriculture of Chile and Spain to convene the first ever global ministerial on agricultural practices to reduce methane emissions, or cow farts. And the ministerial brought together high-ranking government members to share global perspectives on methane reduction and low-emission food systems. And the gathering led to a statement in which the nations committed to support efforts to improve the quality and the quantity and access to finance for sea change adaptation and mitigation measures in the agriculture and the food sectors, and to collaborate on efforts aimed at lowering methane emissions in agriculture and food systems. So, conference participants, including the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, Climate and Clean Air Coalition, Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, the World Bank, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Now, the World Bank, another creation by the post-World War II U.S.-led liberal rules-based order, has been talking a lot lately, yappers, along with the UN, about a coming famine. Yikes, famine, we don't want that. Well, the World Bank issued a white paper on May 22nd titled Food Security Update, World Bank Response to Rising Food Insecurity. Well, the director of the UN World Food Program has also been putting out, starting in September of last year, dire warnings about a coming global famine. Yikes. Well, at the very time, the globalists are warning about food shortages and famine, and their mouthpieces at the World Bank, the UN, and within the administrations of the US and its allies, notice China and Russia are nowhere to be found in these preposterous and anti-food policies, are talking about converting over to a new and unproven form of sustainable farming that's focused more on reducing methane than it is on producing high yields of food. So, modern food production is bad, they tell us, because it produces methane, which supposedly harms the environment. So stop farming. No more gardens, shame on you. Food systems are responsible for 60% of methane emissions. And that was said by Marcelo Mina. She's the CEO of Global Methane Hub. She said, we congratulate countries willing to take the lead in food systems methane mitigation and confirm our commitment to support this type of initiative with programs that explore promising methane mitigation technologies and the underpinning research of methane mitigation mechanisms to create new technologies. Then here comes John Kerry. He is also very excited about taking valuable productive farmland offline, reducing the size of cattle herds, and turning our food production systems over to technocrats and globalists, honestly, offering vague promises of new technologies. What technologies, what new technologies could we possibly need? Well, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. is busy trying to mitigate methane emissions, not just in America, but worldwide, stating on its website that the United States provides key leadership, funding, and technical expertise for international methane emission reduction efforts, resulting in more than 1,140 methane mitigation projects through GMI as of 2021. Brava! So, that's just one example that the Biden administration plans to spend $1.5 million in taxpayer funds on a program aimed at empowering female climate change activists in a patriarchal society in northern Kenya. So, John Kerry said in his statement that mitigating methane is the fastest way to reduce warming in the short term. Food and agriculture can contribute to low methane future by improving farmer productivity and resilience. And we welcome our agriculture ministers participating in the implementation of the Global Methane Pledge. So this May 17th press release further states that the focus of the conference was the deployment of science-based practices, innovation, and technologies in line with sustainable food production. How smart you must feel. So, the nations signing onto this pledge to transform their farm policies are the United States, Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Burkina Faso, Chile, Czech Republic, Ecuador, Germany, Panama, Peru, and Spain. And the government of Spain will organize a second conference in 2024 to monitor and advance implementation efforts related to the statement and encourage more countries to join, according to the May 14th press release. And in order to save the planet from emissions that come from cow farts, literally, they claim it's necessary to force farmers to change the way that they farm, converting their land and livestock to more innovative methods and science-based practices. And these methods will need to be implemented not just on farms, but throughout the food systems. So, they never come out and say what these innovative changes are. That's what bothers me. And only that they will be based on new technologies and science-based. Well, tell me what they are. And then maybe I will be okay with it. Maybe I won't. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. We want to know. So we can presume from this language that among the practices being considered are replacing a major portion of beef and dairy cattle, pork, and chicken stocks that populations rely on for protein with insect larvae and mealworms and crickets, etc. And the UN and the WEF and other NGOs have been promoting meatless diets and consumption of insect protein for years. How gross. And billionaires have invested in massive insect factories being built in the state of Illinois, Canada, the Netherlands, where mealworms and crickets and other bugs will be processed as additives to be inserted into the food supply. I mean, sickening. I mean, often without clear labels that will inform people of exactly what they're eating. And Billy Boy, he's the worst one of them all. He's also partnering with other billionaires to invest in the production of lab-grown meat, a process that involves using cancer cells from cows. Chickens and pigs to quickly grow artificial meat. I mean, now that you know that, and they won't even label it? For the love of God, and farmers will be increasingly forced off their land, as is already happening in the Netherlands, which is the world's second leading net exporter of food after the US. All this will add up to coming famine, the likes of which has never been witnessed by the current generation of people on Earth. It's all by design. Globalists like Dennis Meadows, the author of the 1972 Club of Rome endorsed book, The Limits of the Growth, informed us of the globalist plan to drastically depopulate the Earth. Here's what he had to say. Just listen.
But in one way or another, we are so far, globally, we are so far above the population and the consumption levels which can be supported by this planet that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that. I hope that it can occur in a civil way. And I mean civil in a special way. Peaceful. Peace doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for. That we can, I mean, the planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. That's, unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So, but if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have it. But we want to have freedom and we want to have a high sentence. So we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7, so we have to get back down. I hope that this can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal, so that people share the experience and you don't have a few rich, trying to force everybody else to deal with it. So those are my hopes. I mean, these are pretty pessimistic hopes, but that's...
I mean, seriously, there is no more efficient way to depopulate through war, famine, and plagues. I mean, isn't it interesting that all 3 of these time-tested methods are in play right now? The war on food is very similar to what's going on in the energy sector, where governments are colluding with big businesses to transform all transportation from gas-powered to electric-powered, meaning far few people will be able to afford electric cars. Have you ever priced those things? They're crazy. And even if they can afford them, the use of those cars will be much more tightly monitored and controlled due to the need for charging stations that rely on already overtaxed power grid. And if you can't charge your car when you want to, only when you're allowed to, you have now turned over your freedom of movement to the regulators of those charging stations. In the food industry, big agriculture will also collude with the big governments of the world just to produce less beef, less chicken, less pork, replacing that protein with insects, for crying out loud. Lab-grown meat, yum. And health effects, they're not even known yet. And these changes have already been on full display in the Netherlands, where the government has generated intense controversy by launching a plan to reduce livestock herds by up to 50% and reduce the use of nitrogen fertilizers by 30%. No matter how much they talk about innovation and new technologies, you can't reduce the herds by reduce a fertilizer and then claim that your farms will be more productive. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a lie. All of their innovations will translate directly into less food on the table throughout the world. Hello? Can't feed your family. Just prepare now. Prepare now. Don't even wait. Just prepare now. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to help you get through to what's coming. Just prepare now for famine. Stocking your pantry up is the short-term easy fix. We also need to be thinking about long-term. Have you started your freedom gardens yet? If you've never had a garden or raised chickens, that's something you might want to think about in terms of increasing your skills. Gardening's not that hard. Now, raising livestock, yes, I know. You live in suburbia like me. You can't, right? I get it. Maybe you've had a garden for several years and you have some experience, and you could share that with your neighbor who has chickens or, has little or no gardening experience. Maybe they can buy you the seeds, you grow the garden, and then you know what I mean? Barter. You buy the seeds, I'll give you the produce, and we'll split the produce 50-50. You know what I mean? Networking and cooperating with people around us will be the key to survival once this global famine intensifies, because I'm telling you it's coming. It may be that actual famine that never arrives in the wealthiest countries like America. Food may continue to be on the shelves, but I can guarantee you that the prices, they'll continue to go up and up and up and up and up substantially on staple items like flour, bread, eggs, meat, dairy. Pray for the best while preparing for the worst, right? Because we know that the globalist plan is to reduce the world population from 7.5 billion down to 1 or 2 billion. This has been their plan all along, man. I'm serious, okay? Dennis Meadows, he let the cat out of the bag, and he's a globalist insider. Stay strong. Stay peaceful. Never comply, never submit to anything that's unconstitutional or unbiblical law. Tyrants only have power over those who agree to be governed by them. You know this. It's not like I'm speaking any kind of language that you don't understand already. All right, I'm out of here. I'll see you in the next one, okay? You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Ciao.